Duru salam. All right, I forgot the shout out. I will put it in a comment, but this is Korean Zombie versus, who is he playing? Who is it versus? Brian Ortega. What the hell was I doing? You know what it was? I didn't do the intro correctly, so let me go do the intro correctly. Дуру, салам, как вы поживаете? Мне очень хорошо, ну хорошо. We have a fight. The fight is Brian Ortega versus Korean Zombie. Okay. So this one took me a little bit longer. Because what ended up happening is I had to watch tape until I fell out of infatuation with the guy. So I'd watch Brian Ortega, I'd become a Brian Ortega fan. I'd watch Korean Zombie, I'd become a Korean Zombie fan. And I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew it when I would see it. And here's what's up. So Brian Ortega, his jiu-jitsu is lethal, and it's way old school. People don't teach suicide throws and sacrifice chokes as much as they used to. And sacrifice and suicide submissions are kind of like, they've kind of disappeared from any kind of competition that doesn't have a gi. So seeing somebody at a high level land a suicide submission, and a suicide submission is something that I would identify or classify as a submission that requires you to give up good feet or good posture. So it's like John Wick, right? When you watch the movie, he goes for a standing armbar. Guy standing there, he just kicks his legs above his head and tries to get an armbar. All right, that's a sacrifice. So it's called a sacrifice throw or a sacrifice takedown if you're taking them down. It's a suicide submission in the schools that I learned. It's a suicide submission if they keep standing or if they gradually work themselves to the ground. Okay? Now, you see guys try shit like that for fun, you know, quite a bit. Or you see a guy who just kind of wants to learn it, to work it out, you know, and then when you see a fucking newbie come in the gym, yay, I get to work on my fun throws or my fun submissions or whatever. But Brian Ortega being able to do a sacrifice or a suicide guillotine, because if he misses, he's getting slammed and mounted, right? And so a suicide guillotine is you're going for a guillotine and then you lift your legs up and put them on the person's body, right? If you do it just perfect, the leverage is counterbalanced, and here you are, you have them in the guillotine, and you get your legs, and your legs are up, and the balance is all perfect, so they kind of stand until you gradually work them to the ground, okay? But if you get up there and you lift your legs, and they go boom, and then they pow, 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 pow. You get high mounted or you get low mounted with pretty lethal grapevines and pretty lethal back hooks, or you get side controlled, mounted, ground pounded, side controlled, and then go into a submission or go back into a mount, just depending on how much they want you to suffer. So to see that on a high level is very, very impressive, but it's also kind of an indicator of, all right, man, his jitsu is awesome, but can he get to jitsu? And that's the one thing that I've been real critical of jiu-jitsu black belts is it's got to get to the ground. So without the sambo, judo, or wrestling, without another discipline that's really good at getting you to the ground, it's got to get to the ground, right? So Blue belt Hamza versus black belt Meerschaerts. Striking. One strike. It was, apparently I was in a minority that thought that this thing was a mismatch. But it looked very obvious. I was like, this is not going to get to jiu-jitsu. He's going to hit him and beat him. Or it's going to go to wrestling, and then he's going to be on the mount position. And I don't care if you're a red belt in jiu-jitsu, overcoming a high mount, ground and pound, is difficult. It's difficult. So now we're on to Korean Zombie, who keeps his posture very well. He rides the surfboard very well. It's hard to roll him on the ground. I don't know what his discipline is. I would most assume it was judo. It looked like ground judo. It looked like, it looked like Japanese jiu-jitsu, not Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It looked like, kind of old school-ish judo, modern judo, with a lot of old school. That's what I see when I see Korean Zombie. I see old school jiu-jitsu, old school Japanese jiu-jitsu, and I see some modern judo. And his striking is lethally accurate. It is impressively accurate on his feet. On the ground, he loses some accuracy because he's mostly trying to guard his chin and just get a lot of oomph on it. So you can't take that away from him. Hey man, yes, you want to guard your grill, but now here comes to the flaw. And what I was almost going to call this for Korean Zombie until I saw this. He's got a sneaky right, which if he lands, he tags most everybody with one sneaky right that puts him on the ground, and it leads to his victory, right? But he will put his chin out as bait, or sometimes he'll just get caught trading hands and let his chin get tagged, okay? Brian Ortega, even with his suicide and sacrifice judo, doesn't leave his chin out very much. So that's why I got to go Ortega on this. Plus, I wouldn't put money on this fight, but I kind of hope he does some sacrifice BJJ, some real world-class BJJ, once-in-a-lifetime shit. And even though I think that there's a lot to Korean Zombie that is superior to Brian Ortega, as far as striking accuracy, maybe he's got that one shot pop is a little bit better for Korean Zombie. So Korean Zombie could really easily win this in the first round if it's trading hands on the feet, and then he gets that one laser beam right hand right on the button, okay? But it could also go trading hands and then end up on the ground, and he who ends up on top is going to win this fight. And if Brian Ortega can pull something out of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu bag that, was thought to be lost to time, bom dia. Brian Ortega is going to